The last few years, I've been involved with curating art at Yale School of Management in Evans Hall. And as I started the podcast, I wanted to profile some of the artists whose work we're featuring in the school. And because some of the idea is that people have an experience of the building and of each other and of their education through their experience of the art and the iconography in the building. This is very much relevant to learning through experience. Here, we're learning through experience of objects, but in the podcast, we can have an experience of the objects and of the artist. So I wanted to include that. Of course, in the way that I teach and advise, there's almost always some kind of art, spoken word, poetry, images, music that I'm bringing in to give some texture and to the experience. So I think that art invites us into experiencing life, and so I want to include it in this Learning Through Experience podcast. Today's guest is Kim Weston. Kim is an Afro-Indigenous artist, photographer, educator, and gallerist who has dedicated her life to sharing fine art and photography to people of all ages and abilities, regardless of their circumstances or resources. Not only does Kim teach her craft with an enthusiasm that is infectious and inspiring, she also enlightens students on how to be successful and create a fruitful living doing so. Kim is deeply dedicated to serving her community by developing artists from within the community and developing them for the next step in their artistic journey. And I want to read one other piece about Kim Weston. This is from New Haven-based curator Chitra Ramilingam, now a MoMA curator. She wrote this about Kim. Photographs are usually supposed to show the seen world at a single moment in time, placing what was once a present moment in an eternal past. White photographers have long pictured Native Americans in this mode, captured in black and white, crisply detailed, static, and stoic. Kim Weston's long exposures, taken at powwows, draw on other possibilities from photography's history to bring Native survivance into view. In science, art, and religious practice, the camera has always exposed invisible presences, auras, unseen forces, emanations, radiations that recorded the existence of things beyond the visible surface of the real. Kim's camera sits with her low to the ground, inviting her Native ancestors to join her in making pictures. As she opens herself up to the movement of the dancers, connecting with vibrations in the ground and in the air around her, her camera does so too. As its shutter opens, it becomes another point of contact between the visible and the invisible, between a seen world and a felt world. These images tell us insistently, radiantly, I was there. My camera was there. Something was present. They tell of movement, not stasis. Duration, not instantaneity. Multiplicity, not singularity. With red prayer bundles arrayed below, they invite us to confront the beauty of things we may not, cannot understand. Please enjoy this conversation and the experience of Kim Weston and her beautiful work. Kim Weston, welcome to Learning Through Experience.
Hello. Hi, how are you today?
I'm pretty good. I'm really glad for a chance to talk with you about you and your history and your work and your energy. Thank you so much for
You're
coming.
welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So this is a podcast all about how our life experience can teach us and guide us, and how learning our way through life can be, kind of an approach to living. And one of the ways I love to do this most is by elevating and talking with artists about their work, because of course art can be part of our experience of life, and part of our experience of life can be artful. I guess I hope. And so you are our season 3 artist that I'm so delighted to profile, both because I love your voice and your work, and also because we just put up and profiled you as a featured artist at Yale School of Management, where your work is in the atrium, a very prominent location. So congratulations on that beautiful exhibit. Today, I'm hoping to start with you with a question that I ask all guests, which is an experience of life question. And your art and photography often reflects deep personal and communal topics and stories. Can I ask you about how your own life experience, maybe some story that you might be willing to tell about how your life experience shaped your approach to art and the subjects that you take on and what you do?
So early on, I guess the first piece of art that I remember seeing was my mom taking a tablecloth from the Five and Dime, the Five and Dime store when we lived in the Bronx. And it was a black and white checkered pattern with like little circles that were black and white inside of a square. And that was the first time that I remember seeing adornment on a wall. And I was
Hmm.
probably 5. And then my mom started to take me to museums in New York City. So I went to the Met a lot, I went to MoMA. And that was the beginning of me really seeing art. But my mom said that whenever she put down paper and if there was a pen or a pencil near, I couldn't resist but to draw on it. So she had to hide her bills from me. Yeah.
So, whereas other kids might ignore the paper and pencil that was down, you really were expressing
Yeah.
yourself in that.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like you had early exposure to museums.
Yeah, I it's taken me some time. You look back at your life and you realize, hey, that wasn't just a trip. That was an experience. That was exposure for me. That at the time I didn't realize that that was what was happening to me. I
Mm.
remember at the Met, the steps being so grand and seeing these paintings, these Renaissance paintings of these voluptuous women and red being put in different areas in the painting. And these nudes of these women really were, I was really taken by them because, as a young person in America, you always see women as um, a sexual object. And they're usually thin and they're usually white, and that was it. But these women were voluptuous and they were nude, and there was so much energy in these paintings. And later on, I realized I was told that being heavy set was actually a form of wealth, and that
Mm.
today we frown upon that. But during that time, if you had meat on you, you were considered a very wealthy um, person, a part of society. And so that was the beginning for me wanting to know more about art and more about paintings and the history of art. And then later on, I got into photography when I was about 12 years old at Jamaica Art Center. And I met Dowell Bay and Lorna Simpson, Elizabeth Catlett, Carrie Mae Weems. Thelma Golden was actually the curator there when she was just a little girl and I was just a kid. And so I remember coming from class and showing her my photographs and going, look what I did, look what I did. And um, that was a really great experience for me. And as I got older, I used to follow Thelma to her different openings as she grew as a curator. And so up until my early 20s, I was like the biggest Thelma Golden fan, right? As people were getting to know her, I felt special because she was at Jamaica Art Center and I was showing her my artwork, as a teenager, a young teenager. So, yeah, I've been surrounded by art from as early as I can remember.
That's wonderful. I love that you draw our attention both to activities and to people. I'm such a believer in the power of relational experience to guide and invite, or to push away,
Right,
to have us push away.
right.
And so you're telling about experiences that opened you up and enticed you. I love that energy. Part of the energy of the curation that I'm learning to do. I'm learning to curate in this. I'm learning through the experience of curating. And part of the intention of what we're doing at Yale School of Management is to impact people's experience of the building through the iconography. And so I'm really hoping to people up the walls and to diversify the iconography so that people have a more kind of diverse experience in Evans Hall because of the art and through the art. And so I'm hoping that you'd be willing to talk us through how you approach your work, so we have a way to think about the pieces that we're going to talk about.
So I have been documenting the Native American community. I want to say well over 30 something years. I am Indigenous and I am also African American. I'm Cherokee and Mohawk and African American. And when I first started shooting the powwows, I was doing more of a documentary style. And I did that for a very long time. And I loved it. I thought it was great. And I would get these awesome shots of people in their regalias doing these great moves and looking at the different dance styles. But I realized at some point um, that something needed to change. So I started manipulating my photographs a little bit, and I didn't like that either. And then I got sick um, about 11 years ago, and I have an illness called Arnold Chiari malformation, which basically means that there's not enough room inside of my skull for my brain. And so I had to have surgery to make room for my brain because I was having seizures and I was dizzy. All this stuff, pain was there. So I had surgery at Yale with a great doctor, and things didn't go so well after the surgery. They didn't give me any medicine. They were going to send me home. And then when they did give me medicine, I expired because they gave me too much medicine. So they had to bring me back. And in that process of passing and then coming back, I realized that we are not just a physical body, that we are energy and that we are a spirit. And so in that process of dying, I felt like there was all these beautiful lights and beautiful colors, and the feeling, I was overwhelmed with the experience of love, and just it was breathtaking and hypnotizing. But I didn't feel I needed to stay. I felt like I needed to come back because my partner and I had two beautiful children, and I didn't feel like she could handle it on her own. So one, I felt choice, but two, that experience was just amazing. So when they brought me back, I thought I saw like five doctors in front of me with white coats on, and my wife said they weren't there. so so um but it made me, that experience of that life death experience made me want to do more with my life as an artist and not just go after, I was working in the music industry, so not just do that kind of work or do web design where people take the work after a year or so and they toss it away and fill it with something else. I wanted to do something more meaningful. So I went back to school and I went to Bard, and I went to their International Center of Photography master's program. And it was there that I was pushed by my colleagues to do something different. Why do you go to a powwow? Why do you shoot your community? Why do you photograph Native Americans from different tribes? Why do you dance? What is bringing you to this place? So this guy came up and stood in my space. He had the same exact camera, he had the same exact lens, but he was in my personal space. And I realized then that he was at the powwow for a different reason than I was. I was there because it was a part of who I am. I was there to document, but also I dance, my children dance, my partner dances. And so it was a spiritual experience for us, right? As much as a community experience, seeing friends and family. So that's when I decided that I was going to start messing with my aperture and my shutter speeds. And
Mm,
I slowed down the camera
mm,
and started shooting at night. And I started getting these kind of images that's about over my
mm,
shoulder. And I realized that the energy that I felt when I passed, I was actually capturing it
mm,
with my camera. And it's all in camera work. There's no post production, no Photoshop, no none of that. And what I realized is that our ancestors are allowing me to show the viewer that they still exist. The very thing that I
mm,
was feeling was that my ancestors are with me. The people that I loved in the past, they are still with me today. And they show up in these images in the most peculiar way. So sometimes these images turn into, you can make out that there's a person. Sometimes you can make out, you might feel that there's a horse there, or you may see other entities inside the images, rabbits, uh, different types of light that have all this energy and color and motion. But that's what spirit feels like, you
mm,
know? And so I realized, oh my gosh, what did I land into? And I got scared. And
mm,
then I said, you shouldn't be scared. This is not a place to fear. This is a place to understand my relationship with the dancer, my relationship with the camera, and my relationship with spirit. And so I was able to figure out a way to be a vessel. And I believe to this day that that's what my calling has been, to create this body of work. Be a
mm,
vessel to remind the viewer that our ancestors still walk with us, that they are still beside us, that our loved ones are still beside us, even though we can't see them with the naked eye.
mm,
Smell, a color, there's something that brings them to us to make us aware that they're there. Whether it's numbers that we see that might have been someone's favorite number, or bird
mm,
that might come that cardinal, hey, is that my mom, or is that my auntie, or just different things in nature. So part of my culture is that animals tell us stories. They have a message for us. And so they show up in these images.
mm,
And I just I just feel like I have been blessed with this gift to be able to share the beauty of what I experience, the beauty of what I experienced when I passed, the beauty of what I experienced when I'm at a powwow and I'm in ceremony, and to be able to give those visual notes to other people, right? To be able to say, hey, don't forget, because we're forgetting as a society that, you know, our ancestors made a path for us to go on.
mm,
Technology with the phones and television and the misinformation is a bunch of chaos to distract us. And I feel like this work is made to bring us back. The
mm,
pieces are big so you can feel like you're a part of it, and to remind us that we're not alone.
mm,
We're just not. We're energy. So when we leave this physical body, we just convert into another form of energy. And some of us can feel it, smell it. Some of us can see it, or you may need a little help, like a camera, to help you see it. So, spirit photography has been around since photography started, but this is just the way that I've been able to capture it. And I feel like it's a gift from the energies and the creator and my ancestors and the people I surround myself with.
Well, thank you for offering and sharing this gift. I feel like in the story you just told, I went on a journey with you. It's just so much emotion. First, a little scary, and then I was like, "Oh, she's not scared. It's not. It's okay."
Yeah.
And I feel like I've come, around to where you ended. There's so much noise and chaos in the
Mhm.
world, and there's a way to, kind of be grounded and kind of see yourself, see your way through. And your work is telling a story and inviting that. Um, Thank you for narrating with that and showing your energy. It's fascinating to me because you're, like I said, as we were prepping, you're a little grainy for me, in this screen. But I think I'm kind of working with that because there's an invitation for me to experience you, directly and
Right.
indirectly, in the way that I'm seeing you today. Um, can we talk about your pieces that are at Evans Hall in the atrium?
Yeah. Wow. I thought it was interesting that you and your team selected those pieces. And I feel like they really work well together. So they are a combination of some of my first photography. When I first started,
Oh,
there's a piece called Traditional, where there's a traditional dancer. He's kind of bent over and he's holding something in his hand. You can't really see it, but he's bent over
right.
and you can see his bustles. And that image, that was one of the first pieces that I started to capture. And I was like, I think I'm onto something because
Oh,
the first thing that captured me was the color, and because I'm shooting at night. And so the only light that I have available is the light that's there. And various powwows or ceremonies have different sources of light. And so it looks like I'm not at a powwow. They almost look like they're studio set up, but there's like
yeah.
hundreds of people, sometimes 50 to 100 people around one person dancing, but some kind of way I've isolated them. And
Oh,
they're just some of the most beautiful imagery. Um,
oh.
and I,
And they're kinetic. I mean, we're standing in front of an image that is technically still, but it is kinetic. It feels to me like it's
yeah,
moving. Uh,
Neil and
yeah.
Blake, my professor over at Bard, said to me they were multiple images in one image.
Mm, mm. Maybe that's part of the movement.
Yes. So if you
Mhm,
think about a long exposure, a person is doing quite a bit in a long exposure to finally get to that
mhm,
one final second where the camera shutter actually closes. And so there is movement, and you are getting pieces of that with the final
right.
image.
Okay. Beautiful. And then what is the second piece? What's the one that's in the middle? Can you talk about that
That
one?
piece is a young man from Narragansett. His name is Norman. I forgot Norman's last name. And he's a woodland dancer. And
Oh,
I've been photographing him since he was a young man. And that
oh,
piece is really about the reflection of inside and out.
mm,
When I'm not sure what I'm going to get when I take these long exposures, right? Because they're so long, anything can happen. So I'm not in full control. And I really love that I'm not in control. I mean, I control the camera to a certain extent, but I don't control how the movement of the person that I'm photographing is happening. So it's always
mm,
a gift to me when I get them back and they look interesting. So the piece with Norman, which is the centerpiece in the installation, um, he's actually turned around and then he turns back. And it's almost like he's looking out, but looking inward and then looking back out again. And that to me feels like what our native identity and ancestry is about. We have to look at our past and what our elders have paved this red road for us to walk on, but we're always
mm,
talking about the next generation, the next 7 generations to come.
mm,
And as keepers of the earth, we have our children, and so it's important to pass down our stories to our children. It's important to pass down our language to our children. And then also traditions. And as we create new traditions, right? Because traditions are constantly being created. People have a tendency to think that Native Americans live, hundreds of years ago, but they don't come forward. They're just stuck in these Edward Curtis kind of photographs. And that's not true. We wear these kind of hats and we wear glasses. We may not look like the traditional native that you're accustomed to seeing. So having this picture of Norman is a testament to our culture, and looking at his brown body and looking at him looking inwards and then looking out says so much about who we are in the spirit of who he is, right?
Beautiful, beautiful. And what about the third image? There's a third image
So the
there.
third image is of a woman who's from Shinnecock. She is a blanket dancer. She is, it's the back of her. And blanket dancing is a courting dance. It's a dance that you take a piece of cloth and you move it around your body and you dance with the drum in rhythm with the drum. And you're basically trying to seduce a young person, a young man or person to a woman to or man to come into your life and be your partner. And so this movement that you do is just really beautiful and graceful. And so that image has so much power in it because you can actually see the grace in that image. In my opinion, you tell me, what do you think of that image?
Yeah, I mean, it has a lot of grace to it. I really was drawn to the. I didn't know it was a courting movement. I was drawn to her presence and space claiming,
Mm, mm, yes, yes,
and the simultaneous for me combination of still groundedness and um, some sort of graceful movement,
yes.
which I can't really explain because the piece is not moving. So it's like I said, they're kinetic.
Yeah,
So
yeah. They feel like
yeah,
they're moving though.
they're moving. And for me, she is still and grounded, and yet sweeping through, kind of claiming
Mm,
space.
that is beautiful. That is beautiful. You
Mhm,
got it. You don't need
mhm,
me to
mhm.
explain them. You
Well, yeah, but it's so wonderful to have your words and translation and um, claiming in this
got.
conversation. Is there anything else that you want to say about these pieces and this work at this time in this conversation?
So I have this piece with traditional, which is the beginning of me shooting that started about this work has been building up for about 10 years now when I finished grad school. So I graduated with this work, that particular piece. And then the one
Mm,
that you just mentioned, the traditional female dancer in a blanket dress, that's a newer piece. So
mm,
you have kind of this collection of the old and the new, which is really important for the work as I continue to capture these
mm,
spirits and the energy of the people that's in the piece, and we dance together. I
mm,
want people to feel like they are part of the past, but yet very open for the future. Because as Indigenous
mm,
people, we're constantly evolving like everyone else. We're still
mm,
fighting for the things that are not healthy for the earth. We fight for water, we fight for our land to get that back. And we're winning some of those battles, right? And so, but most importantly, as a people, we are embracing. It's what got us in trouble in the first place, right? And sharing our knowledge and who we are is a part of who we are. We're
mm,
teachers as a people. We're teaching
mm,
and reminding people today still that you have to take care of this earth, have to take
Mm,
care of each other, and that you should be loving to everything around you, and that the earth is connected to us, and we are connected to spirit. We are all one force, we're an entity. And many tribes, different tribes or nations, believe that they're star people and that we come here to help to keep the earth nourished. So my work
mm,
is just a piece of that. And I'm glad
mm,
you've given me this platform to be able to speak about my work and my culture.
mm. So beautiful to talk with you about all of these things and the many more conversations that I think are to
Yeah.
come as we get to know each other even more.